Hello everybody, this is Mithril Zenith, and welcome back to the Archanea map recap series. We are talking about Chapter 6 today, or Chapter 5 of FE3, the first castle map, the map called Fire Emblem. Already we have a couple interesting things. This is the first map with chests, which means it's the first map of thieves stealing items from chests, which means it's the first map of all sorts of shenanigans regarding that. Let's just get right into it. First of all, the Fire Emblem 1 version. We'll just take it one version at a time because I think that makes the most sense, and then we'll review afterwards. In the Fire Emblem 1 version, we have 13 units starting out, most in the entryway, a couple outside, both from the top and bottom of your deployment order. We have an armory here that sells some basic weapons, as well as a supply tent. We have chests that give, and I actually wrote this down so I can give this information. First chest gives 10,000 gold. This chest gives a physics staff, or reblow in certain translations. This one gives an armor slayer, this one gives a seraph robe, and this one gives a killing edge. Now, you may be wondering, okay, that sounds great, so you just get all these items. No, you do not. You do not get them for free. Because in Fire Emblem 1, you need to use charges of warp in order to get this killing edge and this seraph robe. And possibly these other items as well, but definitely for these two. Why? Because in Fire Emblem 1, if a thief reaches a chest, they plunder the item, you don't get to see what the item was that they plundered, and you don't get to get the item off of them when they die. Enemies only give you pre-scripted items upon defeating them. They don't give you the treasure that they took. So, turn 2, the thief is getting this chest. If you didn't warp to it, you're not getting it. Turn 2, a thief is getting this seraph robe. You're not getting it. And this is an FE1 seraph robe. It's worth plus 9 hit points. You will really want that. So there are 3 thieves from the throne room here. They will immediately rush out to get all 3 of these chests if you do not rush forward to stop them. There's this thief here. It'll take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exactly 2 turns for this thief to get here, unless they're blocked, but I'm pretty sure the thief moves first. 2 turns. So warp 1 to get here, warp 2 to get here. And that's what you need to do if you want those items. Granted, many players might say that a warp use is worth more than what a killing edge can offer, especially when I believe you can buy them in just another map or two. If you can't, you can at least buy like silver swords, which are very good anyway. So killing edge might not be that important for you, but the seraph robe probably will be. Other than that, you have Rickard here in jail. You need to open the door and then have Julian talk to Rickard. So that delays your thief from getting the chests even further if you want a second thief. A very odd situation in which you need to have a thief already to get the, quote, replacement thief. I think that's a very poorly designed and poorly considered recruitment, but that's just me. Other than that, you have a couple archers here. Archers can fire through walls in this game. You have a mage here and a mage here. These are your first enemy mages you'll be fighting. You've had Merrick for a little bit. You just got Wendell last chapter. These are the first time that you fight enemy mages, and oh boy, they are somewhat annoying. I think they both have fire. Maybe one has fire and one has blizzard. I'd have to check that. I forgot to write that down. But either way, you have those options. Or options? You have those enemies to fight. They're not too bad, but mages in FE1 deal flat damage, so you're going to have to worry about them. The boss is a general with a silver sword. Generals are armored units that can only use swords, so in some ways they are downgrades of knights, only upgrades in the fact that they have higher base stats. Speaking of knights, we have a couple here. A couple in the throne room. One blocking this door, one blocking this door. Technically not a door, but you know, it's basically a doorway, an entryway, a 1-tile choke point. Armor Knights are stationed here, and I don't believe they move. I could be wrong on that, but I don't believe these Armor Knights are programmed to move. Maybe they'll move if you're like in range of them, but I don't think they do. And then you have a healer here as well to heal the armor knight. So this is a very well fortified defensive position that the enemy takes, basically just to say you're not getting this chest first. And I believe there are some reinforcement cavaliers if you take a really long time on this map, but I could be wrong. This is just, 2 cavaliers and a thief from over here. Defensible position, and then the main enemy headquarters, which the thieves will all clear out. You'll basically just have to deal with 2 armor knights, 2 archers, a mage, and then a healer who stands here until you kill the boss, and then he'll take the throne. So, fun stuff there. Map flow, pretty straightforward. Just go follow in and do that. You might split off Julian to talk to Rickard, and then you'll just be slower getting to those chests. And then you have an option to split off units into here. If you don't, the archers will harass you. If you do, then you can, head off the cavaliers here and fight the armor knights and avoid getting flanked. But the majority of your army is still going to be pushing down this hallway, more enforced this time because the knight, the archers, and the single tile choke point that they are defending. So this is not a, hey, you get to set up a choke point or set up a defensive front against an enemy squad in the upper right. This is, the enemies are coming from the upper right, but they'll meet you in the middle of the map, and you have the option to take over a choke point that they're already holding. Pretty interesting. Pretty interesting evolution of the previously explored dynamic from the last several chapters. That's about all I have left to say for FE1. Aside from, I believe the boss drops a master key, and we'll get into why that's important later. It is now later. Okay, it's almost later. First of all, you'll notice the cavaliers were replaced by soldiers because mounted units can't mount indoors. And so I lied when I said in the prologue video that soldiers were invented in Fire Emblem 11 and did not exist in FE1 and FE3. They don't exist in FE1, but they do exist in FE3, specifically on indoor maps to replace cavaliers who otherwise can't mount and thus cannot use lances. So we have some soldiers here, and we have more knights. The only change to the rest of the map is that, enemy-wise, is that these knights have been moved forward to actually block this choke point instead of just standing here inside the throne room. The enemy has not been changed exactly. He's a general, but he uses a silver lance instead of a silver sword. Not that big of a difference, honestly. 2 mages, 2 archers, 2 archers, 2 knights, 2 knights, 3 thieves, 1 thief, 2 soldiers. Wendell is in this jail cell with Rickard. So you'll need to open the jail cell and talk to Wendell with either Marth or Merrick, and then talk to Rickard with Julian, and that's how you recruit them. As for the chests, once again, they're basically the same. Of course, in FE3 tradition, there's only 5,000 gold in this chest, as opposed to 10,000. All the other items are the same. However, if you kill a thief, you get the last item the thief looted. So, if a thief only loots 1 chest, you get the item from that chest. That has been the series staple from this game forward, and I believe it continues to be the series staple for the vast majority of thieves in all the rest of Fire Emblem. They didn't nail it the first time, they got it in 2. They got it the second time. Map flow, obviously very similar. Not much else to say, not too much has changed. So let's go on to Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon DS, where, as you'll notice, Wendell's not here. It's just Rickard, because you've already recruited Wendell. Oh, I guess one more thing to note in Fire Emblem 3. You only have 11 deployment slots, and they're all inside the castle. You don't have anything outside. You don't have the armory outside the castle. So better hope you have whatever items you need, because you cannot buy any more items in this chapter. And this is one of the few chapters that doesn't have an armory in the entire game, if I remember correctly. FE1 put at least some armory on just about every map. FE3 removed the armory from this map. I'm not 100% sure why, but they also slightly cut your deployment limit. They cut it by 2 units, and they moved the units that were outside, inside. Anyway, now it's time for Shadow Dragon DS. Armory's back. Armory still sells, just the basic iron weapon stuff. Deployment is back to the exact formation from FE1. Chests are basically the same. This chest doesn't give 10k gold, it doesn't give 5k gold, it gives a Bullion S, which can be sold for 10k gold, so it's 10k gold with an extra step. Thief here will come to steal this, thieves will go out to steal those, but they act more like FE3 in terms of if you kill them, you get the item. That's all fine and dandy. These Armor Knights are back to being inside the throne room instead of blocking the door, but we have some new additions in terms of an Armor Knight and an Archer up here, guarding the upper side of these treasure chests, and an Armor Knight and 2 Archers here, standing on these columns, which... Oh, the columns were moved around, okay. So Fire Emblem 3, there is 1 column right here. Fire Emblem 1, there are 2 columns, and Fire Emblem 11, there's back to being 2 columns, but there are Archers on them, and an Armor Knight, so 5 more units, 2 more armors, 3 more archers. All in all, not a huge change, but definitely a decent amount of extra force to consider when charging through, especially since I believe they're, if not aggressive, at the very least will pull on aggro, so you're going to have to deal with that. The boss... Actually, I forgot. The boss in FE3 doesn't have a silver lance. He has a steel lance. Comments are going to... I don't know if they're going to eat me alive on this. The comments don't seem to care, but he has a steel lance and he drops the steel lance. He does not have a master key. In Fire Emblem 11, he has a silver lance and he drops a master key. So once again, copying FE1, but just bringing it forward with the FE11 mechanics and setup. Since generals can no longer use swords, but they can use bows, which is interesting. Nothing else really to say about this map, honestly. I think the flow is solid. I think the extra enemies do add a lot more consistent combat throughout the map. You very much face a choke point right here when things start to open up, as that's when you're going to hit these enemies from the south, these enemies from the north. You're still probably dealing with the enemies in this little offshoot room here. Why the heck is Rickard in here, and why do you have to talk to him with Julian? I very much disagree with this, because it takes 2 turns of Julian's move on the very first chapter in which you have something for Julian to do, which is open chests, because 1 turn to open the door, because I don't think anyone else has a door key or ability to open door at this point, and a 2nd turn to talk to Rickard and recruit him. And then so maybe you can talk to Rickard and then move Rickard around, and then it's like, okay, well, I trade, but then you have to, trade chain his keys out, because Rickard doesn't start with anything. Not a fan of this recruitment being a Julian special. I get it, but still not a fan. Wendell being in here, I guess they had to put Wendell somewhere, might as well put him in jail with Rickard. But yeah, other than that, the only other thing I have to comment on is I am so glad that they changed Thief Chest mechanics from FE1, because this is one of the worst parts of FE1, is that FE1 basically says if you want certain chests, you must use the warp staff to get them. And there is no other way, because there is no physical way any unit has enough movement to get to them. Dancers don't exist. Boots there's 1 pair and it's super late into the game, and then I guess maybe there's other pairs in a secret shop, but at the very, very end of the game. And even if you did, there's no rescuing, there's no dancer, there's nothing, there's no way to get there, and they're always programmed to get there by turn 2. So basically you have to use a warp use and gamble your unit on the hope that the thing that is in the chest is worth it. And as you can see, there are 2 chests here. There is a Seraph Robe, which is very worth using the warp for, and there is a Killing Edge, which is very much not worth a warp use, in my opinion. It's not a bad item, but it's not a Seraph Robe at the very beginning of the game. So while I understand the idea of, hey, we're giving you a tool, we're going to force you to use the tool, and then maybe once you've used the tool, you'll actually appreciate what the tool can do. It's like, okay, sure, I give you warp, You might be like, oh, I really want to save my warp uses. Well, we're going to make you use warp, and then you're going to use it, and you're going to find out how fun it is to use, and then you're going to want to use it all the time. But then also you're going to want to save it because you don't know if there's other treasure chests that you'll have to warp to get to, and surprise, there are. It's a mess. I get what they're trying to do here. It's a mess. But that aside, I think this map is overall pretty decent. It evolves on the map flow that we've seen from the few previous chapters. It has a reasonable amount of enemies, not too much, but they're of different types than what we've historically fought before. I think you've only fought like one Armor Knight, maybe. No, you fought a couple Armor Knights on the castle tower before this, but like FE3 you've only fought... I don't even know if you fought any Armor Knights in FE3 yet, because you skip battle in the Lay. And no, wait, you still have the previous chapter. What am I thinking? What am I talking about? I don't know. It's late. I should go to bed. Regardless, I think the map flow is reasonable. I think the map overall is good. I like the map in FE3 and FE11. I think the increase of enemies in FE11 makes sense, particularly with the increase in player power that you're feeling. I really despise the FE1 Thief treasure system, and I'm not a fan of the Julian recruitment. But that's what I have to say about the map. What are your thoughts? Leave those in the comments below. Big shout out to the channel members who help support and keep things going. And if there is anything that you would like to hear my thoughts about on the upcoming maps, let me know. Give me a heads up before I record them. But next up, we are going to a Death Gaiden map. It's going to be 6X. So, buckle up. That's going to be fun to talk about. Until next time, this is Mithril Zenith, signing out.